In this verbal reasoning video, we're going to be looking at ordering. Some of this material has been taken from our verbal reasoning books, which you can find linked in the video description, alongside a free PDF with 20 questions on ordering, which you can download and practice for yourself. Ordering is exactly what you think it is. We're taking 5 things and we're putting them in order. That could be of order of size, height, weight, length. It's up to us to basically figure out how we're going to order them and what they're looking for. And then your actual answer is the middle value. So whichever one is in the middle after you've put them in order, that is your answer. So let's take a look at the examples. These questions are about putting things in a sensible order. There are 5 words or numbers sometimes, and your job is to select the word or number in the middle. Now for your first example, we've kept it really basic just so you can understand what we're doing. The list that we have for example 1 is 2, 6, 4, 8, 10. Obviously we're going to put them in size order. I generally put them from smallest to largest because it just makes the most sense. Obviously once you put these in order, you get 2, 4, 6 and 8 and 10. And your middle value in step 2 is 6. So that's a basic example. Let's look at example 2 on this page. We have blackbird, snail, whale, dog, pony. Now there's only one way I can see to order these things, and they're all animals, but I would say you'd order them in terms of their size. Again, smallest to largest probably makes the most sense. Out of these 5, the smallest is a snail, the second smallest is a blackbird, then we have dog, then pony, then whale. Now, in terms of techniques to use when you're working these out, I'd work it out in the same way that I tend to work out the median in maths, which is to cross off the first and last, up until you get to the middle point. So, obviously the list given to you won't be in order. So let's just take a look at the original list, which is here. I would say, cross off whale, that's the biggest. Cross off snail, that's the smallest. I now have 3 options. Out of these, the smallest of these 3 is blackbird, and the largest of these 3 is a pony, and that tells me that dog is the middle value. So let's take a look at some questions we've designed for this particular video. Again, we're going to start off basic and we're going to get a little bit harder as we go along. Large, medium, huge, tiny, and small. Again, I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to cross off the smallest and largest first. So I'm going to say huge is the biggest, tiny is the smallest. We're left with small, medium and large. Very obviously, small is small, large is the larger one, and medium, in this particular case, is your middle value. So let's move on to our second example. We have paper, stone, wood, iron and feather. This probably won't be in terms of size like the last question. I'm going to assume that this is in terms of weight. Now obviously if you had loads of paper it could outweigh a stone, but use your common sense in this situation. We're going to say the smallest or lightest is a feather, famously light as a feather. The heaviest out of these, it could be stone, it could be iron. So I'm going to just pause on that one for a second and see what the second lightest one is. And in this particular case, I'd say paper is the second lightest. Now, out of the 3 that we've got left, 1's in the middle and 2 are going to be heavier. I'm going to say that iron and stone are the 2 heavier items out of the 3 that we have left. So I'm going to eliminate those 2, and then wood is our middle value. So sometimes you can't just knock off first and last. You might have to do 2 on one side, see what you're left with, and just use your common sense as you work through the question. Example 3, we have none, some, plenty, few, and many. Now, again, I don't think this is going to be in terms of size like question 1. I don't think it's going to be in terms of weight like question 2. In this particular case, I'm going to say it's going to be in terms of amount, how much of something there is. So let's use our technique. None is obviously 0. Out of the remaining 4, I would say plenty is the one that is the most. You can have the word abundant as well, which also means more than enough. Out of the 3 that we have left, we have some, few, and many. So many is the larger amount of these 3. and I'd say few is the smaller amount of these three. That leaves us with some as our middle value. So let's take a look at our next three examples. They're a little bit more difficult than the ones we've just done. We're going to look at the first one to start with. We have glowing, dark, dim, bright, and blinding. Now, some of these words you should recognize. You should know dark, you should know bright, probably dim. Maybe blinding is the one that you're probably not sure about. And that just means it's so bright that it's metaphorically blinding, or even physically blinding. So after looking at these words, I'm going to say that they're all to do with levels of brightness. So we're going to say blinding is the brightest thing there. And out of the remaining four, dark would be the darkest one out of the five. We're now left with glowing, dim, and bright. Out of the remaining three, I would say bright is the brighter one of the three. Now this is where it gets tricky. We've got glowing and dim. They are fairly close in terms of their meaning, but I would say that dim is the less bright of the two, and glowing would therefore be our middle value. If you think about a fire that's gone off, but it's still glowing with embers, that would be brighter than something that is just dim. Second to last example, we have mansion, house, hut, tower, and skyscraper. These are all types of buildings. This one may be slightly easier than the last one. We're going to go in and say that a skyscraper is going to be the largest thing in that list, and a hut will be the smallest. We're left with mansion, house, and tower. Out of those three, a tower is going to be the biggest one, and a regular house is smaller than a mansion, so we're going to put that one lower down and say that mansion is our middle value. Final question, word, chapter, sentence, letter, and paragraph. These are all lengths of things within a book. So let's take a look. Out of word, chapter, sentence, letter, and paragraph, a letter is the smallest thing there. A letter would make up words. Words would make up sentences. Sentences would make up paragraphs, and paragraphs would make up chapters. So we're going to say that chapter and paragraph are the two larger ones. Letter and word are the smaller ones, and sentence is the middle value. So you can see it's not always going to be about size or length or weight. It can be a mixture of different things. So you've got to be very careful on what they're actually asking you to order. So in this particular question type, your general knowledge is quite a big factor. You might know what some of the words mean, but you need to know the relation between those words and other words in that list. So again, your vocabulary and word bank are important, but in this particular question type, your general knowledge trumps the rest of those. So I hope you learned some new techniques on how to order things for this particular question type. Don't forget you can find 20 questions in the free PDF linked in the video description below, alongside a download for the verbal reasoning book which some of these questions come from. To watch another verbal reasoning video, click on one of these boxes over here, and don't forget to like and subscribe.